Just why am I so rusty at this? I'm so rusty at this. So I'm going to be going over Bob Dylan's astrology. I'm going to be reading through some of the things that stick out to me about his astrology. This is not going to be a deep dive. This is just going to be a sort of shallow to medium depth at best view of Bob's astrology. And I'm also going to do a few extras. I'm going to read his human design, Ching based chart. I'm going to be looking at his cartomancy birth cards and his tarot birth card associations. And I'm going to be talking about his Saturn Return, which is, Saturn Return, never a good thing. And this is all based on his birthday being May 24th, 1941 at 9:05 p.m. Now, it's important to have the birth time for astrology because that puts all of your planets in the houses accurately. You can draw up your astrology chart without the birth time, but it's not going to be quite as accurate as it would be if you had a birth time. So the information on this site is a AA rating, meaning that somebody's pretty sure that he really was born at 9:05 p.m. And I firstly want to say that Bob is, of course, a Gemini, but if I didn't know anything about Bob and I was to guess what his sign is, I would certainly not guess Gemini. I would guess Pisces. I'm really surprised that Bob is a Gemini, but this is apparently his birthday, so we're going to go with that. All of these sites will be linked in the description if you would like to go and check out this information. All these info sources will be linked. And bear in mind that you can put any birth date into these sites. None of this was written about Bob specifically. It's not going to be biased toward his story at all. And I love doing stuff like this because it just shows how accurate astrology is. And I assume this is accurate. I mean, we're going to use Bob as an example, and we're going to find out, is astrology accurate or not? Is it accurate? Let's start out here on astrotheme.com. We're going to start with his midheaven. His midheaven is in the 10th house, obviously, in Libra. So Libra is the sign of justice, and the midheaven has to do with kind of how you're perceived by the public. And it makes sense that it's in Libra because Bob is kind of seen as early on in his career, he was seen as somebody he kind of fights for, justice and the causes of justice and stuff. So this says, quiet, hospitable, endearing character, always willing to help. One comes from a wealthy family or one earns a fortune without great efforts. This degree describes a peace-loving person who acts as a mediator and takes it to heart to solve conflicts and alleviate deprived people's hardships. Now, not everything is going to be accurate here. I mean, astrology is just kind of a blueprint. And there's a lot of free will involved. There's just a lot of different things involved. But, it's not all going to be 100% accurate. It's just what I find is the things that are accurate with astrology are just like, wow. Like, that's crazy, Because, like it says right here, the following professions are likely to suit you well. Mediator, musician, painter, poet, singer, writer. It's all there. So this is the North Node. And the North Node is all about your destiny, your purpose in this life. And he has his North Node in Virgo in the 9th house. The 9th house is about travel, life, philosophy, ethics, and places of worship. It's about spiritual growth, long journeys, foreign travel, gaining a broader perspective, and higher education. So with his North Node in the 9th house, this is suggesting that, and it's in Virgo too, which is Virgo is the Virgin of the zodiac. It's the sign of purity. It's the sign that is all about good health and cleanliness, and just cleanliness is next to godliness with Virgo. So it seems like for his soul schema, you know, the whole idea was spiritual growth, gaining a broader perspective, and gaining education, a knowledge base. This says, altruistic, austere, resilient character. One is a loner and enjoys spending long moments pondering in solitude, but one also appreciates attending formal, glamorous ceremonies. Thanks to a vivid imagination, one is capable of achieving great creative works. I mean, yeah. There may be a strong religious vocation. Yeah. If in the natal chart Mars is prominent, there's a tendency towards violence. If Venus is strong, this degree indicates that intense sensuality is reined in by self-control. So I'm not going to be looking to see if Bob's Mars is prominent. I'm not going to be looking to see what Venus is doing. Like, I don't care about that. I'm not here for that. Any sort of negative stuff like that is in a birth chart is, you know, it may not apply. It just depends on the personal choices that we make as people. You know, are we going to be good? Are we going to be bad? Do we have self-control? Do we not? I mean, that's what it all comes down to. So I'm never worried when I see stuff like that. Unless there's like 8 or 9 freaking placements that mention violence and all this kind of crap. Then I'll take note of it, but it's not concerning. So we've got Neptune in Virgo in house 9. So Neptune is the planet of dreams and daydreaming. It's the planet of creativity. Neptune is a very Piscean planet, and Pisces is the sign of dreaming and daydreaming, imagination, feeling, emotion. It is usually associated with people who have musical talent. You know, you would expect a poet to be a Pisces. Like, I don't know. It's pretty much what they're associated with. So Neptune is associated with Pisces. It's a Piscean planet. And so we've got that planet in Virgo in the 9th house. So it's given me the vibe of like Bob's soul schema is here to have learned and enriched itself through the act of creation, creativity, and all of its facets of daydreaming, fantasizing, storytelling, just all types of creating, and doing this in a very kind of public way. So this is Cupido in Virgo, and actually it's very interesting because Cupid and Virgo go hand in hand, and this is in house 8. The 8th house has to do with like death, has to do with inheritance, sort of almost a scorpionic house. The 8th house is a very scorpionic house. So he's got Cupido and Virgo in the house of death, essentially. Oh my God. Okay. Inventive, generous, tolerant character endowed with a flexible mind devoid of prejudices. Sounds like Bob. One understands that the importance of money is relative, and thus one behaves with altruism. Thanks to one's wide range of talents, success and honors are achieved in one's field of competence. That's a little bit vague, but yeah, definitely would describe Bob. Juno in Leo, house 8. You know, I don't know what this site says that it's about, but to me it always seems about sex. Like Juno seems to be like about sex. So, and it says right here, it's to the marital partner and the defense of individual rights used in the field of marriage. Yeah. So he's got this point, this asteroid. It's not fictional, it's real, but he's got this asteroid in Leo, which Leo, listen, I don't have beef with Leo. We love Leo. Leo is the showman of the zodiac. Leo's all about entertaining. Leo is meant to be in the spotlight. Leo is a performer, and they're also a performer in love, okay? They really perform in love, and they believe their own BS, and it's a lot. So he's got the planet of marriage in Leo in the house of death. So I'm being so hardcore about the 8th house right now. I mean, it's not just the house of death. Like, okay, that sounds so bad. So let's just consult the book. Listen, I'm not a professional astrologer, okay? I'm a professional tarot reader, so like, don't come for me just because I'm looking this up. Listen, we're trying to learn here. Yeah, so house 8, look, it's got the freaking bird skeleton. I mean, it's all about death, yeah. So it's about karmic connections, secrets, legacy, sexuality, research. Yeah, it is the house of sexuality. Facing fears, death and rebirth, transformation, profound change through intimacy, power, and control. So let's read what the Asteroid of Marriage says about Bob. Independent, courageous, idealistic character. One pursues noble objectives, and once they are achieved, one remains as generous and honest as before the victory. I've heard Bob's very generous. This degree heralds a remarkably brilliant destiny, made of altruistic accomplishments and glory. Pretty accurate. If in the natal chart this degree is in conjunction with Mercury, which I am not going to look at, it describes musicians and poets. Would you look at that? With the sun, preferment and privileges. With Saturn, and without supportive aspect from other planets, failure and poverty. So clearly he doesn't have that going on. With the part of fortune, wealth and power. Wow. Would be interesting to know if any of these things connect with any of these other things, but yeah, totally not here for that. Shallow dive, not a deep dive, okay. Vesta and Leo in the house of death. I'm totally going to stop saying that at some point. Quiet, patient, determined character. One has strong ties with the soil. One is intelligent and ready to work hard to acquire the knowledge and skills necessary for the improvement of one's position. Life unfolds happily and comfortably, although one is unlikely to rise to a very prominent place. One enjoys a good health throughout life. So let's just see. Vesta is rarely used, I can see why, and brings the ability to efficiently devote oneself to a cause. Well, I'm having all these different thoughts about what this means. At the edge of a thick forest, a man plows his field with 2 strong and docile oxen. Maybe Bob, like, wanted to be a farmer or something, but he, like, never got to do that. Like, super hardcore? I don't know. Something weird. Okay, we have Zeus and Leo in the 8th house. Persistent, demanding, spiteful character. One always demonstrates gratitude but never forgives a bad deed. Faraway lands and long journeys are important elements in one's brilliant career. Sharp intellectual faculties, hard work, and excellent organization skills supported by good luck enable one to earn a good reputation. It is most likely that the biggest part of life is spent abroad at the service of one's country. Should the natal chart concur in the second part of life, one achieves happiness and extraordinary successes. In the country where one has worked, one's name will go down in history. So yeah, like, he's worked in a lot of countries, his name has gone down in history. That's certainly true. In the second part of life, one achieves happiness and extraordinary successes. So I think emphasis here is on happiness, because he's been extraordinarily successful since he was young, you know. So, but in his second part of life, right, he achieves happiness. I think, you know, I don't know if I'm off base about this, but in any of the videos of Bob performing live, since like the 90s and onward, it really has seemed like he's like genuinely been happy. You know what I mean? On stage. Like, it even looks like he smiles a lot. Or maybe it's just some weird thing he does with his mouth. I don't know. But it looks like a smile to me. It looks like he's like smiling like frequently on stage for like years now. You know what I mean? So maybe he did totally like achieve happiness. Okay, so here we get to a major planet, Pluto. Pluto is kind of like the 8th house. Pluto is the planet of transformation. And Pluto is the lord of the underworld. Pluto is a very scorpionic planet. And for it to be in the 8th house is incredibly fitting. But for it to be in the sign of Leo suggests to me that there is an element of transformation involved in his showmanship. Pluto is one of the planets I take really seriously. So let's see what it says. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, let's unpack this one. So we're going to read the description first. It says, a sad-looking man is seated on a stool in front of a light which is obscured by a black cloud. Ugh. Depraved and thoughtless character. One displays loose morals in both private and business matters. If the natal chart shows strong probity, then this degree indicates that faith is tremendously helpful in overcoming ordeals caused by twists of fate. So this is exactly what I was thinking. So here's the deal. You know, stuff like this can appear in anybody's chart. Like Mother Teresa probably had something like this in her chart too. Haven't looked, wouldn't know. But you just can't take it too seriously because, like I said, you know, there is an element of like personal decision making. There's an element of whether you have self-control, whether you're a good person in general or not, you know. And if you are, you can avoid the pitfalls that are kind of built into your astrological schema. And it just takes self-control and self-discipline. So that's Pluto. Heavy hitter, that Pluto. Now we've got Chiron. Chiron is known as the wounded healer. Chiron's all about emotional wounds. And he's got Chiron in Cancer. Cancer is the sign of emotions. He's got it in house 7. Don't judge me. Don't you judge me. Judging me. I can hear you judging me. Listen, if you had this righteous book, get this book. Look at that. You would freaking want to like flip through it too. House 7 is about profound relationships, intimate partnerships, marriage, known opponents, exploring self through the mirror of another, giving and receiving love. So we have Chiron, the wounded healer, the emotional one, in the house of partnerships, essentially, like intimacy, in the sign of Cancer. Not a lot of fulfillment in love, to be honest. So we've got Mercury in Gemini. So Mercury is the planet of communication, and Gemini is Bob's sign, of course, and it is the sign of communication, the sign of being good with words. And that is in house 7, which we just talked about, is the house of, you know, intimacy, and the house of, you know, learning through basically your involvement with your partner. So that's interesting. It would make sense with that placement that a lot of his songs are about love and romance. It says generous, cheerful, spontaneous character. One has nice oratory skills and attracts many friends, but one tends to be superficial and have difficulty in concentrating deeply on any specific subject. As years go by, this weakness becomes the cause of many ordeals, and efforts must be made in order to remain more focused on few identified areas instead of having scattered centers of interest. So, to me, this is all about love. To me, this is all about partners. To me, this is all about relationships. So, and the description is interesting too. It says, amid chirping and fluttering sparrows, 2 women talk quietly on a bench. So I think, you know, there have been mentions of polygamy by Bob. And I think that it's no secret that, you know, he's probably got a lot of, you know, partners and all this kind of stuff. Mercury in Gemini. So he's really got so much communicative ability being a Gemini and having Mercury, the planet of communication, in Gemini. That's just incredible. So this is Vulcanus, which is a hypothetical trans-Neptunian planet, the existence of which is not proven. And I'm gonna have to tell you, I got a problem with Vulcanus here, okay? Like, Vulcanus and Gemini in house 6. Okay, let's read this. A wretched man courageously leaves his beautiful mansion behind him. His wife in a lavish dress follows him with deep regret and looks back at their former abode. Unless the natal chart strongly indicates otherwise, this degree heralds that years of prosperity are followed by ruin and destitution. So we've got to look at, okay, so it says Vulcanus, sometimes said to be the higher octave of Saturn. Oh, God. Provides strength to improve collective relations, to structure things to be efficient, and to get straight to the point. On the downside, he may bring about arrogance and scattered efforts. So with it being in house 6, isn't house 6 about, what is it about? Is that about children? Oh my god. Hold on a second. Let me just get to this. I think house 6 is about kids and stuff, isn't it? So the 6th house is about health, personal care, practical details, work ethic, daily life, establishing a foundation, duties, and service. Where's the house about kids then? Yeah, okay, so that's house 5. Oh. Freaking book, dude. Can't. Okay. What was this house about? Oh my god. Hold on a second. Profound relation. Wait a minute. Oh, this is house 6. It's late, y'all. Health, personal care, practical details, work ethic, daily life, establishing foundation, dude. Fuck that house, dude. We're moving on. Venus, the planet of love. Right? So we've got Venus and Gemini in house 6. I mean, would I want to fuck with somebody with Venus and Gemini? No, definitely not. Well, that's cut. Edit that out. Listen, Venus and Gemini. So let's talk about Gemini for a second. Gemini is the sign of oratory, like, you know, skills of speech. It's all about words and the ability to talk a good line of smack. Okay, that's what Gemini is about. And with Gemini males, they tend to do this like kind of like big brother thing where like if like a Gemini male will like tease you, you know, and it's pretty annoying, honestly. So to see that his Venus is in Gemini, in a house that does deal with like relations on some level, yeah, see, like for you, love is a game. So, okay, it says, in the moonlight, 2 wolves devour an animal carcass while crows wait for the leftovers. Secretive, ambitious, and greedy character. One is always on the lookout for some nasty trick and often operates with the help of accomplices. One builds and develops one's wealth on other people's unhappiness and ruin, but sooner or later the day comes when the sword of justice puts an end to one's reprehensible deeds. Okay. I'm like doubting astrology right now. I mean, I don't know. Listen. Again, though, this is Venus. This is the planet of love. So maybe that crap is true about him in a romantic sense. You never know. Like, if this was like Saturn or something, or even Mars, I mean, I might be concerned about it, but with it being in Venus, I mean, it's pretty much just about romance, to be honest with you. And I doubt it's really like bad effing severe. That was kind of dramatic. So let's just move on. Okay, we got the Sun in Gemini in house 6. So he's got a really strong 6th house with the Sun being there. Okay, as 2 men fight over the sharing of their loot, a third thief gets a hold of it. Greedy, quarrelsome, crafty character. Intellectual capacities are good, but instead of working honestly, one prefers to covet people's goods and use underhanded malpractices to dispossess one's victims. However, sooner or later one falls prey to a smarter swindler. This degree often indicates weeping, bad luck, and deprivation of liberty. Now, clearly these things never happened to Bob. You know what I'm saying? So this is another example of self-control, being a good person, helps you avoid these pitfalls. Everyone has pitfalls in their astrology. You just have to be good and on the up and up to avoid those being a problem. Okay, so now we have Jupiter in Taurus in the 5th house. The 5th house is about creativity, and it is strongly related to children. So having Jupiter in the 5th house in Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign. Taurus is a very sensual sign. This suggests to me that, you know, Bob probably be having a lot of kids, dude. Let's see what it says. In the patio of a beautiful mansion, a man wearing lavish clothes lies on a sofa surrounded with servants and sycophants. Brilliant, generous, and refined character, one belongs to a prominent and rich family and revels in beauty and luxury. One uses a significant part of one's wealth to fund the construction or the restoration of a prestigious monument for which one's name goes down in history. One may also be financially involved in the construction of modern healthcare institutions with razor-edge technology. Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? So we've got Uranus in Taurus in the 5th house. An alchemist works in his laboratory. A heap of gold coins are on his table. The window overlooks a field covered with wheat. Ingenious, simple, noble character. Success and wealth are achieved in an unusual profession or in activities dealing with metal. He welds. That's interesting. It is most likely that a major discovery or invention is rewarded by a prestigious prize. Nobel? Anybody? Even though one earns a lot of money, one does not change one's frugal lifestyle. Yeah, this is on point. So he has the moon in Taurus in the 5th house. So the moon being in Taurus, Taurus is all about like creature comforts. It's all about being comfortable. It is kind of like the sign of Cancer, just without all of the intense emotionality involved in that. And with it being in the 5th house, again, related to your creativity and children. So family, you know, this suggests to me that he gets a lot of emotional security from his family, from the comforts of what that provides. Oh boy, here we go. Saturn in Taurus in the 5th house. All right, I'm serious about this Saturn thing because Saturn's one of the most serious planets you can possibly figure out. So, Saturn is in his 5th house, the house of self-expression, joy, confidence, passion, creativity, taking risks, play, love affairs, relationship to children, approach to parenting. So we've got Saturn in that house. That's pretty serious. With Saturn in the 5th house, if you have like a sizable family, you better really be on good terms with Saturn. Silent, methodical, and clear-sighted character. Sly enemies abound to conceal their real nature while waiting for the moment when they can successfully grab what does not belong to them, be it money or an already married person. Fortunately enough, one displays vigilance and providence, and therefore one is able to avoid the most dangerous traps. If in the natal chart, Saturn is powerful, prudence and concentration capacities are strengthened. With Mars, energy is increased, and with the Venus, kindness is enhanced. In some cases, this degree indicates gifts for occultism or at least above average perceptiveness. All of that describes Bob. That's a pretty good Saturn placement. That's like positive, for sure. Lilith. Now Lilith. Oh, I forgot about Lilith. The dark, feminine planet. Well, it's not a planet. It's an asteroid or whatever. But you know what I'm saying. So it's all about... We'll just highlight some of the things Lilith is about so I don't have to actually say these words. All right. So it says, quiet, benevolent, trustworthy character. The family life occupies the first place. One has a large family composed of one's own children or some kind of spiritual children. One is surrounded by loving young people who benefit from one's experience and knowledge. Success can be achieved in all occupations related to agriculture and animal husbandry. Life goes through easy paths and leads to a peaceful end. So this is an extremely good Lilith placement. Like extremely, it's like unusually good. Excellent Lilith placement. It suggests to me that there's just very few problems with Bob when it comes to like any of these keywords that Lilith is about. They seem to be a non-issue with this placement. So we've got the hypothetical Hades in Aries in house 4. This degree pretends loneliness, extreme poverty, and perhaps exile or imprisonment abroad. In difficult circumstances, friends are unwilling or unable to help. Trips to foreign countries are strongly advised against. One must think thoroughly before taking action and opt for a quiet, modest life in order to offset the dangers of drowning, both literal and physical. I'm starting to have a problem with these hypothetical planets. Is it any coincidence that like the worst, most inaccurate things that we've seen in this chart have been these hypothetical planets and asteroids and stuff that like don't even exist, right? You know what I mean? So I've got another tab pulled up of the meanings of these different degrees. So let's just see what the meaning of the 20 degrees in Aries is. An empty courtyard. Nothing is left. Reality is scattered, self-obliterated, the familiar rendered irrelevant. Apocalyptic changes, personal and collective, take over. No being, only action. You become a projectile of intent, literally identifying with what you can do now. A barren wasteland of an inner world, a thrust outside. Stark and surreal. You feel compelled to dare, push over the edge, no going back. Destiny is frenzy. And in this wild, volatile mix, creative forces are released that would never come out any other way. Yielding to the role of the purging and cleansing agent of changes, you are unable to wriggle out of anything ever again. I got nothing, dude. Like, these hypothetical planets need to go, dude. Like, what the fuck was that? All right, now we have Mars, which is a major planet. It's in Pisces, which is a very creative sign. Pisces is typically very musically creative, too. So he's got the planet of war and aggression in the house of personal finances, essentially. In the sign of creativity. This could say that he's sort of aggressive when it comes to his money in regards to creative efforts. How long have I been recording here? Oh my god. Dude, I don't have time for this, for real. I literally don't have time for this at all. The ascendant, that is the rising sign. Oh, he's a Sagittarius rising, is that true? Dude. So the reason that I raise an eyebrow over this ascendant being in Sagittarius, the rising sign, is what the world kind of perceives you as. It's what you come off as. Sagittarius, I would have never clocked Bob as a Sagittarius rising. Like, I don't see anything Sagittarius about Bob, except Sagittarius is associated with the centaur, the half man, half beast, right? Which is also associated with Pan, you know, the pipes of Pan. And there's this association with Coco Pele, pan flutes. There's this association with that lore of this musical trickster, right? Coco Pele, Pan. You know, playing those pipes, right, and kind of just impregnating women. That's pretty much what Coco Pele is about. I mean, he even plays the harmonica. Like, dude, I mean, the associations are there. So it's all about seduction and like spilling your seed on the ground and like, yeah, so you got Pan right here with like hooves and stuff. Well, it's super complicated. Yeah, you ain't freaking lying, dude. Oh my god. The misunderstanding. First, the fact that the current commodified version of the Coco Pele is distinct from its roots as a Hopi deity adds complexity to the situation, as the misassociation of the Coco Pele name with the flute player symbol of ancient... Okay, listen. I'm moving on. We're done. We're done with that. That took like way longer than I figured it would. Like I figured I was in my mind, I was like 30 minutes tops, I'm gonna be through this, but no. Okay. So let's just see if anything else stands out. Sun in Gemini, you are the go-between of the universe. You love to investigate, communicate, and make connections. Yeah, that sounds accurate. Sun square Mars. Born doer and person of action. The ego is strong, energetic, assertive, and extroverted. There's an incredible drive to accomplish and achieve in life, which pushes straight on toward whatever goals are in mind. That's what's up. Totes accurate. Sun conjunct Jupiter. Larger than life. Expects the best, is open, above board, and honest. Discovery. Wants to see, experience, and gain knowledge of everything life has to offer, especially foreign things or things that are out of the ordinary. Lucky by nature. The general outlook on life is one of optimism and enthusiasm. Moon conjunct Uranus. Independence above all. Very much involved with all that is non-traditional and revolutionary, especially when it comes to the domestic scenes and ideas of home and family. Original and different, unpredictable when it comes to emotional reactions. The approach to feelings, moods, and the whole psychology gambit is novel. Tends to show emotions suddenly or in unusual ways. Prefers being unconventional and nonconformist. Gets pleasure out of engaging in forbidden or unauthorized behavior. Mercury square Neptune. You have more than just the gift of gab. Your words and ideas can transport and enchant listeners, carrying them beyond the world as they know it into the world as they wish it could be. Your imagination and sense of what connects all life is felt in your speech and in the way you communicate. You love a good story, and a sense of the mystical pervades every one you tell. Oh, how accurate is that, though? Soup's accurate. Soup's. You're at home in the world of myths and dreams, for your mind soars on the wings of the imagination. Jupiter conjunct Uranus. Unusual vocations. Your career or life path, the way you make your living or get through life, will be very different, perhaps unique. You always take the road less traveled by, and skirting the crowd and the commonplace, head for parts unknown. The inventor, your approach to any problem is always original, and you can invent things or discover new places or develop new ways of doing things. Communications, computers, and the whole electronic revolution are a perfect career choice for you. See, this is weird because, like, I've always thought Bob couldn't possibly use the internet. Like, there's just no way. You know what I mean? But I'm seeing a lot of indicators that he might. I'm having problems reading words right now. So, yeah. What that says. Saturn and Taurus. You have difficulty feeling secure. You avoid routine and can't seem to find the right environment for growth and development. This could include fear of wealth and possessions. You need to develop a steady domestic virtues, routine work, regular growth, commitments, and so on. That's not hitting. All right, that's kind of not hitting. That kind of doesn't hit. Saturn conjunct Uranus. You find it difficult to be spontaneous, to get away from routine and do something different. Others see you as a creature of routine. Travel may also be hard for you. I mean, I've heard that Bob, like, prefers to travel by, like, bus or whatever, you know? So maybe, like, he doesn't prefer, like, planes so much, which, same, honestly. So maybe, like, that could be one way to interpret this. Uranus trine Neptune. Your insight and vision into what unites people and into dreams and mystical regions of our mind is profound. You have an enchanting way of working and communicating with others in these matters with music and the arts. That would be accurate. Music and the arts. New paths to world or personal unity are a major interest, and you have a very practical sense of how to make your dreams real. Can I just say this? Like, chaos astrology really just blows astro theme out of the freaking water. Like, there's no comparison between these two sites. Pluto in the 8th house. You are likely to have a deep interest in the arcane and esoteric knowledge. You may also develop a fascination for subjects and investigate the big questions of life, such as reincarnation, life after death, and karma. Well, I recommend those interests to anybody, to be honest. Neptune in the 9th house. You may be attracted to the mystical and ritualistic aspects of spiritual teachings. As a seeker of truth, you come to realize that ultimate truth is ultimately indefinable. You may become devoted to a spiritual leader at some point in your life. However, you need to discriminate between true teachers and false prophets. You should approach all legal matters cautiously, as you are prone to attract dishonest individuals. Long distance travel is quite likely. It's pretty freaking accurate so far, dude. Libra energy, Libra on the 10th house cusp. Libra energy is always responsive and conciliating. Whatever. Assuming the appropriate reaction or delicately weighted strategic response to any question or statement. What is sometimes seen as two-faced is only Libra's facility at responding to people in kind, giving both sides equal consideration. This is certainly the social sign par excellence. Impersonal and impartial, the sign doles out only what is demanded, nothing overdone, but nothing neglected. Okay, well, that's the end of it. So that's the end of that. Thank you, Chaos Astrology. Okay, so now we're going to get into the birth card calculator. This is the tarot cards which are associated with one's birthday. It's basically a numerology thing. It gives you the tarot cards associated with your birthday. So his cards are the Star and the Strength card. So the Star is Aquarian energy. It is forging the new way. It is pretty self-explanatory in this sense. It doesn't surprise me at all that he has these cards as his birth cards. Now, the Strength card is interesting because the Strength is all about self-control. It's all about making sure the beast does not overpower you. Now, in this version of the tarot, you can just hardly see it, but this is pretty much the original version of the tarot, and there are so many different versions of this, and in a lot of versions you cannot see this detail, but she's got this wreath wrapped around herself, and she's taming the lion. She's got her hands in the lion's mouth. She has become friends with this beast, and the wreath is actually going around through the lion's mane, and so they're bound together through this wreath. And it's really interesting because it just suggests a mastery, an understanding, a oneness with the inner beast, which we all have the inner beast, but not everyone has a mastery and a self-control when it comes to that. So this is like I was talking about, you know, anything in the astrology chart, in the blueprint of your schema and your soul that is astrology, anything in there that is negative can be mitigated by self-control and self-mastery. Now we have the playing card, birthday associations. We're going to lay these out here and talk about them for a minute. So the tarot associations with these cards are the Eight of Wands, the Six of Pentacles, the King of Swords, and the Knight of Cups. So these are his cards which are associated with his birthday. So the Eight of Clubs is about fast moving information, is about fast communication. It is about fast action. It is about having a very little delay between the idea and the execution of the idea. Incoming communication. Very Gemini. It's a very, very Gemini card. The Six of Diamonds, which he has twice, is really, in the tarot, this card is about generosity. This man is, it's about discrimination as well. This man is giving coins to this homeless person, and he's not giving anything to this one. He's holding the scales of justice in his hands, and he's giving to this person, but not to this person. There is a certain quality of discrimination, of good judgment involved in this generosity. The King of Spades, of course, is the King of Swords. The King of Swords, I would say the King of Swords is, first of all, the one king in the tarot you don't want to F with. Like, when I see the King of Swords, I'm like, King and Queen of Swords are not typically anybody's favorite. Usually if you like the King or the Queen of Swords, it's because you're like an air sign. Swords are associated with air, right? Like you're like a Gemini chick, and you're like all about being a Gemini chick. You know what I mean? Usually when the King and the Queen of Swords are around, it's just kind of like, ugh. Because they're very cutting. They cut through. They cut to the truth. They're cutting with their words. They are very direct people. Like, their word is, that's the end all be all. And so the King of Swords is Gemini at its most refined, Gemini at its most powerful, at its highest expression. That's what the King of Swords represents. Now, sort of on a lighter note, we have the Jack of Hearts, which is the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups is very romantic, and this is definitely describing Bob. Is, you know, a lot of romantic songs, a lot of love songs, and as we read in his chart, apparently, you know, he's very idealistic in love, and so that lends to some really great music about love and whatnot. Now, I want to briefly touch on the I Ching. The I Ching birthday analysis here. He's got gate 6, which is sung conflict. I have the card right here. It says, the fundamental design component of progress, the law that growth cannot exist without friction, the energy for producing life itself, feeling, emoting, and sensitivity. So basically it's about coming up through struggle, pretty much. I could read the description from this site, but I don't know. I don't really like the way it's like typed, so I'm going to read from here instead. This is the I Ching Book of Changes. Number 6. The proper response to conflict, whether it lies within or without us, is disengagement. Okay. And then, depending on which calculators you use, they give you like different I Ching gates associated with those. So we have number 46 and number 8. Number 8 is holding together, the basic worth realized in contributing individual efforts to group goals. Through example, the contribution of the individual is impressed on the collective, leading by example. Number 46, pushing upward. Good fortune that may be perceived as the result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. To accept that one is in the right place is deeply spiritual. The determination of self, the body is the temple. Interesting. No, I'm definitely not going to talk about that. Moving along. Okay. So what else do we have here? Oh, yes. Oh my God. And so this is where we get into a part of the subject. Excuse my noisy chair, if you can hear that. So we have to briefly discuss the Saturn return. The Saturn return is a particularly horrendous astrological transit. It is said to take place every 29 years for every person. And here's the thing. The Saturn return lasts a lot longer than anybody ever wants to admit. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to admit it, but it lasts much longer than people claim. And so technically it may be every about 29 years, but actually the transit and the effects of the Saturn return lasts for about 5 years. And you can feel it coming on, you can feel it when you're in the thick of it, and you can feel it dissipating when Saturn finally starts to move out of your sign, out of the position where it was when you were born. So Saturn, Kronos. Here we have a photo of Kronos, which is associated with Saturn. And in this photo, this painting, he is eating his child. That's Kronos. That's Saturn. Okay. Saturn, known as the taskmaster, known as Father Time. Saturn's hardcore. And what Saturn is looking for from you is for you to prove yourself. So the Saturn return is the proving grounds. It's the time when you show Saturn that you are working toward a goal, working toward your purpose. And you do this by physical demonstration. This is about action. This is about building. This is about dedication. And so when you're doing all of these things during your Saturn return, it can only help you deal with the Saturn return. So if the Saturn return happens once every 29 years, that means that it happens to you about the age 29, 30, happens to you at 60, happens to you at 90. But the thing about it, like I said, is that the effects of it last for like 5 years solid. And really, if you want to just really get down to it, it's like literally 6 years. I'm sorry. I know. Nobody wants to hear this. Nobody wants to hear this. Okay. My thing is this, right? Saturn return. A lot of death can happen during a Saturn return. It's typically a time when you straight up lose people. You just lose people. They die. And interestingly enough, though, the Saturn return also can be a time of birth. It can be a time of birth as well. So new life can come in where old life left and things like that. Also, about the Saturn return, is interesting that sometimes during the Saturn return, so in the space of 5 or 6 years, new people will come into your life, usually important connections, at least one will come in, and they will probably die. Like, I hate to say this, I seriously do, it's awful, I know. If they don't die, it's going to be a thing where like you like never see each other again, or they might as well be dead, because like you're literally never going to see that person again for one reason or another, and typically it's because they die. Okay, so that's like the uncomfortable thing about Saturn return, that nobody wants to hear it ever, and nobody especially wants to admit how long it lasts. So here's the thing. For one's third Saturn return in life, that's around the age of 90, isn't it? But it's actually around the age of like 84 to 90, or kind of like, dude, it's a long time. Like, it's a long time. Like, okay, take for example your first Saturn return. You'll start feeling it coming on at the tail end of age 25. And it will finally be over for sure at like 31. Okay, that's a long effing time. And so it's the same every single time. It lasts that long. So like we're talking like from like 54, 55 to like 60, 61. We're talking like from like 84 to like, 90. And listen, I've known people who survived their third Saturn return. Like, I've known like super old people who like lived that long. But that's the thing about the third Saturn return. It's by far the worst one, because like ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time to ride out 5-6 years when they're that freaking old. Like, ain't nobody got time for that, So it really is a bitch and a half, I have to say. Like, that third Saturn return, not a fan. But, the good news is that when, you are that old and it's your third Saturn return, it's not your first rodeo, it's your third rodeo. Like, you've freaking seen it all before, but I would say for someone facing that third Saturn return, like, since Saturn is all about physically proving, actually actively working toward, building your foundation stronger and creating like actual physical stuff and like, moving around, being active and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I would just say, nobody should stop doing any of that during any Saturn return ever. Like, any Saturn return is not the freaking time to like stop being active, stop creating, stop physically proving to Saturn that you're like doing something. Like, ain't no Saturn return the time for that. Like, you got to keep trucking, keep moving. That's the name of the game with the Saturn return. So now we're going to dive in briefly to something called human design. And this is largely based on the I Ching, but we have the profile here, and I'm just going to sort of quickly read through these different explanations of Bob's chart in human design. So this is not astrology. It is sort of, it encompasses astrology and I Ching and different types of things that already exist, and human design is actually a fairly new thing. It's very exciting, very, very accurate. So let's read. Bob's type is a manifesting generator, the multi-hyphenate, multi-passionate people who are here to do and accomplish many diverse things. It does not surprise me in any way whatsoever that Bob is a manifesting generator. And it means what it says. Manifestation, generating that manifestation. I mean, I had not looked at his human design chart before this, and I just was not surprised at all that he is a manifesting generator. His authority, the way he makes decisions, is emotional, solar plexus, based on how something makes you feel, so intuition, essentially. His profile is 4-6, the regal authority figure. Strategy is responding, so responding to the environment, to cues in the environment. Again, a lot of intuition involved here. The telltale feeling that happens when you're not living in your design is frustration. The most important gift is gift 20, truth-telling with effervescence. The other gifts are creating closeness with others, being a tastemaker and marketeer, a noticeable voice, listening and collecting stories, communicating with clarity, the patience to develop higher perspectives, embracing life with childlike innocence, influential energy, magnetic charisma, life's information keepers, creating togetherness, love of physical self and its power, altruism, generosity of spirit, self-created joy, and creating unity. Damn, like, that's on point. His incarnation cross is the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix. I mean, I don't really know what that means, but it sounds like hella accurate though. Digestion, sounds in music, high sound. Your strongest sense, taste. Environment, shores, melting pots, places where multiple different elements or cultures come together. That reminds me of New York City, Greenwich Village. Lastly, we are going to touch on one of my favorite things, which is astrocartography. This takes your birth time is incredibly necessary to make one of these charts. You've got to know your birth time. But this takes your birthday, your birth info, and it renders over a map of the entire world where your harmonious aspects are and where your disharmonious aspects are. It's very, very interesting. I recommend, if you don't do anything else, you need to look at your astrocartography because it's going to answer a lot of questions for you. Potentially. And the reason I say potentially is because Bob's astrocartography is honestly like some of the weirdest I've ever seen. Like, I don't know, I've seen some weird ones, but this one's pretty weird. So the number one thing that I look for in astrocartography is the moon node, the lunar node, the place of retirement. And as you can see here, we're having to go all the way over to this area right here, which runs through Russia and Pakistan. This is the place apparently that he is best to retire to, according to his astrocartography. And so whenever I see the chart holder's place of retirement being somewhere so far away from where they were born, that suggests to me that the chart holder is pretty much just not meant to retire. They're pretty much just, they shouldn't retire. Now, is it impossible that someone might, retire somewhere, across the world in a place where it's an entirely different culture and they've never probably been there? I mean, it's not impossible that that would happen, but whenever I see this, I just think there's not going to be any retirement. So bringing it all back home, if you look at the USA map, very interestingly, this place of birth right here, there's pretty much like no lines running through it. Nothing harmonious, nothing disharmonious. It's pretty weird. Usually you've got something going on around the place where you were born, but that is not the case with this chart. There's really not a lot going on the eastern side of the United States. There's some lines that run through New York, but I mean, there's just really not much going on over there. So with an astrocartography chart like this, you see, all of these lines over here in the western US, and that really looks like the preferable place to be, because if I unclick disharmonious aspects here, you can see, these are just the harmonious aspects, and that's pretty good stuff right there. But like, there's not all that many more like disharmonious aspects. So even if there were challenges and conflicts over here in the western part of the US, it's still a better place to be, because at least you're presented with some type of variation. You're presented with some, spicy, spice of life is like conflicts and challenges sometimes. Like, of course, we don't want conflicts and challenges all the time, but they can be good, shake things up a little bit. Over here, the eastern US, that'd be looking boring right there. I'm saying, I don't think I would like necessarily kick it over there. There are a few interesting lines, like, let's see, the one that runs through New York provides energetic balance between private life and career. That's the Mars line. And then we've got this weird one that runs through, like, I don't know. I'm not seeing anything like too compelling in the eastern US. Yeah, I mean, I would stick to the Western US. If this was my astrocartography, I would just be like, I'd just be over here. I'd be over here in the Western US, and I wouldn't be bothering with anywhere else. Like, that line of retirement positioning is like, you know, usually you want to hinge things on that, but with this setup, you pretty much want to just kind of pretty much give up on the idea of retirement. So that is my shallow, medium depth dive into Bob's astrology and all those other things. I started into this video like wondering, you know, is the astrology going to be accurate? And once again, it absolutely was. Totally incredible. Even the things like the birth cards were very accurate. So this was a lot of fun to do. It was not the deepest dive possible into astrology, but certainly the most that I'm going to do. And I think that it was pretty insightful, pretty amazing. And overall, I gotta say, you know, Bob's astrology really strikes me as someone who has a lot of self-discipline, a lot of self-control, is someone who probably really strives to make the right choices, to have good judgment, and I think that is, you know, further proven by like reading the things that we read in the charts and things that could have potentially been construed as negative, that clearly have not been the truth about his life. You know, it means that he's made good choices, means that he's had good judgment, it means that he's had self-control, and I think that's really great. So overall, I would say, you know, if you're looking at astrology to try and get a grasp on whether somebody is like good or not, Bob definitely seems good, and I really enjoyed making this video.